Today's question asks so I can analyze the mental health and personality characteristics of Richard Ramirez, otherwise known as the Night Stalker. Ramirez was a serial killer who was active in California from June 1984 until August 1985. Ramirez was convicted of 13 murders. It's believed he was responsible for many more than that.
What's up, guys? True Crime King back. All right, so I put that poll up yesterday, and overwhelmingly you guys said that most of you would watch this a video on this guy. And I'm choosing Dr. Grande to video to react to because he's going to speak to, or he's qualified to speak to, his mental state and what's going on in this guy's brain. Because, like I said, this is the worst, scariest person that I've ever seen, ever researched, hands down. It's almost not even close. So, I want you guys to understand, somewhat understand what is wrong with this man mentally, right? And I'm not qualified to speak to that. So I'm going to react to Dr. Grande as he goes. But here we go.
In addition to the Night Stalker, he was also referred to as the Walk-In Killer and the Valley Intruder. All the people I'll be talking about in this video, of course, are real people, so just a reminder that I won't be diagnosing anybody, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. So first I'll take a look at the timeline in this case, then take a look at the background of Ramirez, and then talk about the mental health and personality factors that may have played a role in this case. Now, as I go through all these crimes, we see that Ramirez would often break into homes and murder the occupants. Before committing murder, he would often assault the victims sexually. So when I use the word assault here, that's the type of assault to which I am referring. Also, as I go through these crimes, getting the ages of the victims correct was actually fairly difficult because I was looking at many sources, and a lot of the sources had different ages for the same victims. I guess when that information is reported, getting that age right isn't really a priority.
All right, so yeah, so whenever he says or I say assault, we mean sexually, just like he said, because that's what he did. He would break in and assault them. A lot of times with their husbands, right in the other room, that can hear everything. That's just, I guess he got turned on by that, right? He must have. He was a sick freak, right?
Right, they're victims and not the perpetrator. Usually we know the age of the perpetrator with some accuracy. In this case, of course, Richard Ramirez was 24 when he started killing. But again, for the victims, it wasn't always clear. I wanted to list their ages, though. I didn't want to skip that part because they really showed the wide range that Ramirez targeted. All the crimes listed here in the timeline were crimes that Ramirez was convicted of, except for the first one. And I'm including this in the list because this happened before the first official Night Stalker killing. So it kind of indicates that he may have been active prior to when we would think, just looking at his criminal record.
Remember, he's going to talk about the ones Richard was convicted of, okay? It's 99% chance Richard Ramirez is responsible for who knows how many more assaults, break-ins, whatever, right?
So now to get started on the timeline. We see the first murder is April 10, 1984. Again, he was never convicted of this. We see a 9-year-old female is murdered in the basement of a hotel where Ramirez was living. It wasn't until 2009 that his DNA was matched to a sample obtained from the crime scene.
So 1984, and it was his first murder, and his DNA didn't get, matched until 2004, 20 years later. Wow.
So he was never charged because that just wasn't enough to make this case. Then we see the beginning of the official list. These are the crimes he was convicted of. This is June 28, 1984. The body of a 79-year-old female was found in her apartment. She had been stabbed repeatedly as she slept. Ramirez left a fingerprint on the mesh screen that he removed to get into the house. Moving to...
Hold on. So, he's assaulting sexually a 79-year-old elderly woman, right? He doesn't care, obviously, who it is, right? Just sick.
March 17, 1985, and all the crimes from this point forward take place in 1985. We see that Ramirez commits crimes in two different locations on that day. The first, we see that Ramirez approached a 22-year-old female outside of her house and shot her with a .22 caliber revolver. She survived. He then went into the house and shot and killed her 34-year-old female roommate. The second crime scene involved here, the second location, not long after this, on the same day, Ramirez pulled a 30-year-old female victim out of her car and shot her twice. She did not survive. Moving to March 27.
Just goes up to someone's car, pulls them out, kills them, and it didn't even say if he took the car or not. Jesus Christ.
Ramirez enters into a house with a 64-year-old male and a 44-year-old female occupant.
And please don't comment, saying, I use the Lord's name in vain, okay? I will pray for that tonight, okay? I know I'll get a comment on that.
He shot the male while he was sleeping and then bound and assaulted the female. After this, he started stealing valuables from the house. The female victim managed to free herself and retrieve a shotgun. However, it was not loaded. Ramirez shot her 3 times with this .22 caliber revolver, then retrieved a knife from the kitchen and stabbed her.
So she got a shotgun, but it wasn't loaded. I guess she must have known that shotgun wasn't loaded, right? I guess it was the only thing that was close to her that she could do, right? But obviously it didn't scare Richard off. It would scare most people off if you have a shotgun pointed at you, loaded or not. They don't know, right? But obviously, Ramirez is just a crazy psycho fuck, right?
May 14th, Ramirez makes entry into a house that has a 66-year-old male occupant and a 63-year-old female occupant. He shot the male as the male was reaching for his own weapon. He assaulted the wife and then took valuables from the house. The male would later die. The female victim would survive. May 29th.
Hold on. Yeah, so, okay. The male unfortunately died from his gunshot wound. But before he died, he had to listen to his wife getting assaulted, okay? And while he was helpless and dying, right? And then the female survived, right? But for the rest of her life, she has to, and for the years after until Ramirez was caught, she had to live in total and utter fear. The lives he ruined is crazy. And the amount of trauma he caused to the survivors. If any survivors are, or people that are close to this case see this, I would email me, please.
9. Ramirez made entry into a house occupied by 2 sisters, an 83-year-old and an 80-year-old. He attacked them with a hammer, and then he shocked one of them with electricity from an electrical cord. He also assaulted them. It was 2 days before they were found. The 83-year-old would later die. May 30th, Ramirez entered the...
Another 80, a young, old elderly couple, right? So it seems like he goes after young women who he can overpower mostly, or elderly couples, soft targets, I guess you would call them, right? It's not like he would just go after a single like 34-year-old, right? That would he would have a much harder time controlling. And I guess he likes the sexual factor too. I don't know if he's gay or not.
The home of a 41-year-old female and her 12-year-old son. He handcuffed them and assaulted the female. He left after stealing their belongings. July 2, Ramirez enters the house of a 75-year-old female. As she was sleeping, he attacked her with a lamp, and then he retrieved a knife from the kitchen and stabbed her. She did not survive. July 5, Ramirez made entry into the home of a 16-year-old female. While she was sleeping, he attacked her with a tire iron. After unsuccessfully trying to locate a knife in the kitchen, he attempted to strangle her with a telephone cord. As he was doing this, he saw sparks coming from the cord. He believed that Jesus had intervened to save the victim, so he fled the scene. The victim survived.
Okay, so that points to another mental illness, right? Something definitely wired wrong in his brain. So he sees sparks while he's strangling this person and with a telephone cord, and then he believes God is sending down some beam to make the phone spark, and then so he runs off. And we at a couple of these scenes, he actually left pentagrams spray painted on the walls, or using blood from the actual victim. So he definitely was a devil worshiper, or he believed in Satan. So maybe God really did put fear in him.
July 7. On this day, we see two separate crime scenes. The first one, Ramirez makes entry into a house with a 61-year-old female occupant. He beat her to death using his fists and by kicking her. He left a sneaker print on her face.
And notice how in almost all of these, he's using something different. He doesn't care what he is. He just uses whatever's available. And he left his sneaker print on her face. Jesus Christ.
The second crime scene, he then entered a house of a 63-year-old female, attempted to assault her. He ended up taking her jewelry and fleeing. She survived. July 20. Here again we see two crime scenes. The first, Ramirez makes entry into a house carrying a machete that he acquired beforehand. This house had two occupants, a 68-year-old male and a 66-year-old female. He attacked both of them with the machete and eventually shot them with the .22 caliber revolver. The second crime scene, he enters into a house with a 32-year-old male, a 29-year-old female, and their 8-year-old son. There was also a 2-year-old daughter in the house, but she wasn't harmed in the commission of this crime. He kills the male with a .25 caliber pistol and then assaulted the female and the son. He stole $30,000 worth of valuables from the house and then fled the scene. This moves us to August 6th.
30 grand. So 30 grand is a decent amount of money, but to somebody who is homeless and doesn't have any money like Ramirez, that's like winning the lottery, right?
6. He makes entry into a house, and we see there is a 38-year-old male and a 27-year-old female. He shot both of them with a .25 caliber pistol. The male, after being shot, managed to fight Ramirez off. Both these victims survived.
Okay, well, luckily there was a strong, nice young 38-year-old male, and even after being shot, he could fend him off. But I've noticed also, whenever it seems like he knows there's a male around, he has a gun with him, right? And whenever there's not, he just uses his fist or whatever's around, like a telephone cord or a tire iron, right? But so far, every time there's been a male in the house, he's had a gun.
August 8th, we see he makes entry into a house containing a 35-year-old male and a 28-year-old female.
All right, here we go, another male. Let's see if he's got a gun this time.
There was also their 3-year-old son there. He shot and killed the male and assaulted the female. August 24, Ramirez.
So there was a male, and he brings his gun. So I'm sure he knows, or maybe he always has the gun. He just doesn't use it unless there is a male there, right?
Attempted to make entry in.
Now, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments.
Into a house, but was scared away. One of the residents gave police a description of his car. The police also found a footprint on that scene. Shortly after this, Ramirez climbed through an open window into a house with a 29-year-old male and a 27-year-old female. He shot the male and repeatedly assaulted the female. He stole their belongings. He tied the female, and he left. She struggled to get to the window so she could see Ramirez driving off. She was able to give a description not only of Ramirez, but of his orange Toyota station wagon. Both victims survived. During several of the crimes that I've listed here, we see that Ramirez made references to Satan. He also left satanic symbols at several crime scenes. He believed he was an agent of the devil.
An agent of the devil. Wow.
It was at this point when Ramirez was identified as a suspect by the police, based on a fingerprint found in one of the vehicles he had stolen. August 30, Ramirez traveled by bus to Arizona to meet his brother. He returned to Los Angeles on August 31. Ramirez became aware that he had been identified. He ran across a highway and tried to carjack 3 separate vehicles. Eventually, a mob chased him down and physically assaulted him until police arrived. It's like...
Okay, now in this instance, I don't think the mob, when we say assault, assaulted him like we said in the beginning of the video, right? I'm pretty sure they just beat the crap out of him. I know I would have if I was in that mob, and I was around that time that this guy was causing chaos in this community, right? And I'm sure everybody was sick and tired of this guy, right? And they finally found out who it was.
That the police saved his life in this instance. His trial...
I bet they did.
...started on July 22,
They should, in my opinion, this is just my YouTube censors, just my opinion. If the police just should have kept on going. That's my opinion.
1988. On August 14, one of the jurors was murdered. Initially, people thought that this murder might have been arranged by Ramirez. As it turns out, the juror's boyfriend had murdered her, and later he ended his own life. So the jurors were pretty shaken up by this. An alternate juror joined the jury, and they finished the trial. On September 20, 1989, Ramirez was convicted of 43 different crimes, including 13 counts of murder. Now, at this point, we see that Ramirez has attracted a number of groupies. He has a bunch of fans. He would eventually marry a woman while in prison.
Okay, yeah, so, first of all, Ramirez was a disgusting person. I mean, he never brushed his teeth. I saw in some other videos, people said that you could smell him, from like 10 feet or more away. He was just disgusting. No personal hygiene at all. And it's not like he's a good-looking person, right? just not very attractive at all, right? But for some reason, these some women are attracted to anybody that is a murderer, right? This, well, I think maybe Dr. Grande will get to the exact condition of what that's called.
Awaiting the death penalty. Ramirez would never be executed. He would die at age 53 on June 7, 2013 from B-cell lymphoma.
Good.
So there we have the timeline of the crimes and the result of the trial. Now let's take a look at the background of Ramirez. There are a lot of components in his background that really seem to connect to what he did criminally later on. Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960. Some of the sources say February 28th. I think that...
All right, so we're about at 20 minutes. So we're about halfway through. We just got done all the murders. And so now Dr. Grande is going to go into his mental and all that stuff. But I'm going to do a part 2 probably later today. So you won't have to wait too long. Just watch this, and then I'll have part 2 up very soon. Until then, guys, True Crime King out.